I think a lot of women throughout the course of Donald Trump's tenure as a politician have been told, oh, well, if you're a woman and you care about women, you shouldn't be voting for this man. But it was actually interesting to see the number of women who would come up to us out on the campaign trail and say, I'm voting for Donald Trump because I'm a woman, because I'm a mom, because I'm a wife, because I understand that this is the person who, as president, is going to do the best things for me, my future, my family's future. And I don't think any of it stuck. And I actually think a lot of women in particular kind of were awakened in a way that maybe they hadn't been before in this election right now. Because look, when it comes down to the kitchen table issues, I just don't think there's any disputing it.
It's a crazy world, crazy world. Somebody's gotta have to save you. It's a crazy world. It's a crazy world. Somebody's gotta have to save you.
So I guess I was going to save this to the end, but why don't we just get it out of the way right now? There's a lot of rumblings about what your next little situation might be. So assuming that Marco Rubio is confirmed as Secretary of State, that means we have an opening in the Senate. There are an awful lot of people in the Twitter world, and that is basically the world now, saying that you would be interested or that they would like you to be interested or something to that effect. So go.
So I'll have the floor now. Yeah, look, I think had you presented this to me even a year ago, I would have said, I don't think this is something I would ever want to do. But it's been an interesting journey, really, for me. Again, to come from a very different background without the last name Trump, to kind of get immersed in politics. And we all were in the family. I started out in 2016 out on the campaign trail for my father-in-law, and I didn't know what to say politically. I just said, I'll go out and talk about the man that I know. And that's sort of how it started. Then I stayed on as a senior advisor to the campaign in 2017 after he was inaugurated. Obviously, we had the 2020 election. And then when I got a call from him to run for co-chair, I said, all right, I don't know if this is the right fit for me, but I ultimately came to the realization that it was probably the best thing for me to do. And I never wanted to look back and say, what if I hadn't done this? And so then, we get to a place where we do think that Marco Rubio, I assume, will be confirmed, and his Senate seat will be open. Ultimately, it falls on Governor Ron DeSantis. And I do think he has great judgment. I think he really is the reason that a lot of us probably moved to this state we're in right now.
Basically everyone in this room,
And so I'm ultimately going to leave it up to him. But I have said, yes, I'd be very interested in discussing what that looks like, if that's something that he sees fit to potentially appoint me to.
Do you think of yourself as a particularly political person?
Well, Again, not in traditionally speaking.
But now you've been co-chair for a year. You've been on the campaign. In
some sick way, I don't want to say yes, but yes, of course. It's hard to have had all the experiences that I particularly have had and not feel like I am a political person now. And it's weird because I didn't seek it out. It kind of found me. And I think that, the way I generally feel about it, especially as it relates to a potential Senate seat, is I think I'm probably representative of a lot of the country, a lot of young mothers. My kids are 5 and 7, and you look at the makeup of the U.S. Senate, you have Katie Britt. She has school-age children. Her kids are in high school. But there really is no one that is representative of kind of the younger families out there, at least from a mom perspective. And so I think if this is something that ultimately happens, that could be a really cool thing to see.
So speaking as a mom, the other thing that you were doing all along this was wearing the pink hats and the pink shirts, and you were out there with Sage and a bunch of others. The Women for Trump. What were you finding was kind of the biggest pushback against that? Because it seems to me the left has used abortion in like this really perverse way to keep so many women afraid of voting for Republicans and made that like the most important thing in the hierarchy. And I think you guys did an incredible job. And I thought Megyn Kelly's speech speech the day before the election was like, man, that was the best Women for Trump speech I had ever heard. What do you make of sort of largely what's happening with women and mothers right now and how it pertains to what's going on with the Trump momentum?
Yeah, well, I think that, it's kind of interesting because throughout the course of especially this campaign and this election, it was almost like women felt like guilty, but they knew, they said, we have to vote for Trump, but they're trying to make you feel guilty about it on the other side, to your point with the abortion issue. And I think ultimately when it comes down to putting food on the table for your family and thinking about what the future actually looks like, whether we're embroiled in World War III, whether you can afford, your current home or you're going to have to move, those sort of things, I think, take precedent over anything that the left was ultimately trying to push out there. And I think a lot of women throughout the course of Donald Trump's tenure as a politician have been told, oh, well, if you're a woman and you care about women, you shouldn't be voting for this man. But it was actually interesting to see the number of women who would come up to us out on the campaign trail and say, I'm voting for Donald Trump because I'm a woman, because I'm a mom, because I'm a wife, because I understand that this is the person who, as president, is going to do the best things for me, my future, my family's future. And I don't think any of it stuck. And I actually think a lot of women in particular kind of were awakened in a way that maybe they hadn't been before in this election right now. Because look, when it comes down to the kitchen table issues, I just don't think there's any disputing it.
Do you have any moments where you had somebody that was on the fence that you talked to after an event or that was like right there that you kind of helped get over it? Because I still think even now there's plenty of people that are softly, maybe they didn't even vote for him, but are still softly there, but still afraid to say it.
Well, and I think a lot of that ultimately comes down to personality. And they're being told that, look, if you listen to certain media outlets, forget it. This guy's the worst thing that's ever happened on the planet Earth. And I think that what I experienced was a lot of times there would be these people who would say like, I don't know, I'm not sure about voting for him. And to hear from someone who knows him, who really, I don't have a background as a Trump. I come from a place like a lot of people do. Yeah. I hope helped a lot of people feel better about that. And what I really actually think we're going to see happen is, and I think you're already seeing it happen. Look, we already got the Trump dance out there. People are already kind of unifying in this crazy way. But I believe once he goes in the White House again, and the idea that he's going to put people in internment camps or any of these like wild ideas that they tried to throw out there don't happen. And instead you see movement in the right direction for this country. I really believe that when he leaves the White House, I think he's going to have an incredibly high approval rating. I think a lot of people who were so concerned or actively fought against him are going to say like, God, what a waste of the past 10 years of my life doing this. And I really do think that the next 4 years, he's going to shine. He's going to do the great things for this country that he's promised. And a lot of those people, I believe, are actually going to come around and say, man, I wish I had voted for him.
Do you think in some sense he'll be better having had these 4 years not to be president and having to gone through all of this stuff? I mean, I do want to talk about the sort of wide tent now that he's got around him. But like specifically for him, the fact that he did step away and have to learn these lessons and I mean, quite literally almost be killed, like all of that stuff leading to somebody that can do it better than had he just been reelected.
Well, I think it was good for him, but I also think it was ultimately what the country needed. And I think had he, look, there's no one who wanted him to win more in 2020 than those of us in our family. And no one honestly worked harder. You know, we were out there campaigning in the midst of COVID and all the craziness. But I remember saying to him, it was probably 6 months or so after he left the White House. I remember saying to him, I actually think that this was God's timing for you. I actually believe that what people are going to experience over the next several years are going to show them they should have voted for you. And if that's something you want to do again, I think that you'd be successful. And I think it was good for him in a lot of respects, but I also think it was good for the country ultimately. Now, I hate that our country had to go through this. I think it's been terrible. I think we look so weak. I think we're in a really dangerous spot, on the world stage. I think, the suffering that we've seen, whether you look at the southern border, the fentanyl crisis, all of it has been terrible. But I do think that it allowed people maybe to really open up their eyes and realize that things are not good. And oh my gosh, we voted for old Scranton Joe, this guy who they said would be this grandfatherly figure, and take a look around. It's not good. So, but I think very specifically for my father-in-law, the assassination attempt in Butler, Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe he's the same person on the other side of that. I really don't. And I think spiritually, he's always, believed in God, and he's always been a somewhat religious person. I think it's a different level for him now. And I actually believe that the thing he continued to hear out there, which was, we need you, this country needs you, and you were made for this time,
Mm-hmm.
I think he actually started to fully embrace and understand. And I think it's allowed him to be what will be, I think, one of our greatest presidents.
If you're looking for more honest and thoughtful conversations about politics instead of nonstop screaming, check out our politics playlist. And if you want to watch full interviews on a variety of topics, watch our full episode playlist, all right over here. And to get notified of all future videos, be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell.